Hi, welcome to Infodumpies. My name is Brianne. My pronouns are she, her. I'm autistic, I have ADHD, and if we're playing Mario Kart, I will be Waluigi because I'm a dirty little perv.
Hi, I'm Violet. I have ADHD. My pronouns are she, her, and I can actually transform into a 1/32nd scale miniature racing car.
That's part of your privilege of being trans.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, because I'm trans, I can do that.
Yeah,
The car's just very
cis people
small, which
can't
is
do
different
that,
from Transformers. Yeah,
which is a
Transformers, they stay
different
full
thing.
size. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
different thing. And it's not what we're talking about today. No.
Transformers, no.
Today, we're talking about some little tiny cars, 1/32nd scale cars. Do you like little cars? I know you're not like a car person, but like you like little cars?
Actually, one thing you might not know about me is that for a while as a teenager, I was very much a car person because my
Oh.
shitty stepdad would restore cars and I wanted to know about them. So I've actually installed the engine in a 56 Chevy and a 68 Nova. I've welded in like floor panels and stuff.
Whoa.
Um
I'm just
I'm
1/3
actually
car on my dad's side, so.
Yeah, I'm not car myself, but I'm pretty good at car actually.
Well, cool. I wonder then you might kind of like what we're talking about today a little bit in terms of like the customization aspect of it. And you're probably going,
Yeah,
"What are we talking about?"
I like little stuff too.
Yeah? You
Things
like
are
little stuff?
cool. Things are cool. Things are cool, but then when you make those things
Mhm.
little,
Yeah, it's just better somehow, right?
yeah.
And like the good thing about it being lil, right, is that it's cheaper, which is part of like generally it's cheaper when something's little. I don't want obviously we're talking about when we get into like smartphones and whatnot. So what are we talking about, right? We'll quit beating around the bushing. We're talking about Tamiya Mini 4-wheel drive racing. Now, what is all of that? That's a lot of stuff. So Tamiya is a Japanese company, and they make all kinds of like RC cars and electronic toys, mostly remote control kind of stuff, toy cars, all sorts of things like that, little robots and whatnot. And they pioneered one of the most popular forms of little car racing that we know of today, at least in Japan. It's less popular here. In America, you'd be more likely to see something like slot car racing if you're familiar with that concept, where you've got a car that you put on like a little peg in a slot and you place bets and drink a whole bunch on which is going to win, and that's
You
about it.
peg a slut?
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with slot car racing myself, but from what I understand, you make a little car, I think, and there's like a little thing in a slot that you put it on, and then based on the shape of the car, it's different aerodynamics, and then there's like an electronic trigger that you have to control the go and not go. And
I was just being a slut and said you peg a slut. And
oh,
suddenly I'm very
sorry,
interested
I
in
was
tiny
so
car racing.
I was so into it. Well, so in the world of tiny car racing, you could peg a slut. That has nothing to do with the tiny cars, though. But in slot car racing, which I probably should have done some research on slot car racing for this episode, but you know what? I didn't think about it because that's not what this is about.
That's
If
not
you
what
do
it's
slot
about.
car,
That's not what you're interested in.
yeah. If you do slot car racing, fuck you. No,
Oh
take it
no.
back. No, sorry,
No,
that was too
God.
far. That was too far. I'm sorry. Never mind. Ignore that. If you do slot car racing, it's cool, and you're probably cool. It's fine. But also if you do slot car racing, you're probably like 58 and drink lagers and do slot car racing at your local bar. Mini 4-wheel drive was originally meant to be kind of like slot car racing, but for kids. But not in the sense that you're drinking or gambling or any of that. It was meant to be like appealing to children in that it teaches kids about like simple engineering concepts and things like that, as well as you get a little cool toy car that go real fast or real slow, depending on how you do it. So mini 4-wheel drive racing. It doesn't have to be Tamiya, by the way, but Tamiya is the very much most prominent brand. It's a 1/32nd scale powered toy car that is equipped specifically with 4-wheel drive. Now, if you don't know what I mean when I say 4-wheel drive, that just means that when engine give power, it give power to all four wheels, not just like the front wheels and then the others kind of just go along with the vibe. like how a lot of cars do. If it's two-wheel drive, generally you'll have the front wheels or the back wheels providing the actual power, and then the other wheels are just kind of along for the ride, freewheeling it. And most people don't know the difference in like how it feels, but in Tamiya four-wheel drive racing, that can make a big difference because you're not controlling the car as it's racing. And that's one of the things I think is most interesting about it. The cars are generally, like I said, 1/32nd scale. They're very small. They're generally pretty lightweight, but you can put weights on them. And the idea is you turn it on, literally drop it from about, 6 inches onto the track, and then it races the circuit. And if your car falls out of the track, you're disqualified. If your car flips over and gets stuck in the track, disqualified, straight to jail. If your if your car is there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can get disqualified. You can also run out of battery. The way that these things are built, you have a little battery that your battery can like get old over time and you can recharge them, sure, but if you don't, you can actually undervolt or undercharge your battery in order to get more consistent performance, because if your battery is totally full, you'll go faster at the start of the race and then slow down over the course of it.
Which is not necessarily good.
Not necessarily what you want, because the whole thing about mini four-wheel drive racing is that you are tuning your car right before the race. You have this little car and you just pop the bottom cover off. You've got access to all of the gears, the axles, the wheels can be swapped out, the motor can be swapped out. You can even swap out the generally on a Tamiya car, there'll be four like little rollers on each of the four corners that help it stay in the middle of the track and prevent it from, dragging along the sides as it hits a turn. Mm-hmm. And you can adjust those. Tamiya actually has on their website the whole list of regulations and modifications for what you can change and how much you can change on a Tamiya four-wheel drive car. By the way, these things are really cheap and easy to build. Generally, a kit will be like $10. It doesn't require any glue, and it requires maybe like a tiny screwdriver, and then everything else snaps together. And it usually comes with a bunch of cool stickers that you can put on there too. They're really, really nice detailed kits. A lot of the people that have done things like wargaming, like if you've done Warhammer, it's like kind of that level quality of the kits. It's what they call a sprue kit. If you're unfamiliar, it's all the pieces kind of taken apart and then like injection molded into a single sheet, and you pop them out with little snippers, and then you just pop everything together and you're good to go. So you can really build.
Stickers make it go faster.
The stickers do make it go faster.
The cooler stickers you put on it, the faster it go.
Yeah, and you can even customize like the shape of the vehicle, which would be like the chassis component. And there's a whole bunch of different like formats. For example, there's mini four-wheel drive, which is just the standard format. There's super mini four-wheel drive, which is like faster speeds, higher weights. Like you've got a heavier car, so it's able to grip the track more. You've got more powerful motors. You've got more weight allowance in general. You've got some more flexibility in terms of how you can customize it. And then there's fully cowled mini four-wheel drive. Now, fully cowled is part of like a Japanese translation. You may have heard in animes like My Hero Academia, the term full cowling. That basically just like the full jacket is kind of, the whole thing, the big shaboing. Everything all at once is kind of what full cowling or fully cowled is referring to in this sense. And it's not a perfect translation, but it's the one that is most often used. But fully cowled is basically like no holds barred, make it as fast as you can within some very loose specifications. Go nuts. Like that's like the top tier in terms of competitiveness. That's where a lot of the more expensive parts get into. You get very like F1 racing style shapes and stuff like that in that. But there's also stuff like wild mini four-wheel drive, which is a whole bunch of like, you've got a Tonka truck and a monster truck and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Oh, that would be the one that I would do.
Oh yeah, there's the wild mini four-wheel drive, and then there's truckin' with like in apostrophe four-wheel drive, which is all that same vibe. And
I would put little tiny truck nuts on mine.
Oh my god, that would be amazing. And that
the
would
smallest truck nuts.
as long as they are over 1 millimeter from the flat surface of the track in terms of ground clearance, it's within regulations. So the
BRB
regulations
gonna go fuck around with some Sculpey and make some teeny tiny truck nuts.
absolutely. And hey, you could put little lead bearings in them so they add weight to the back end of the car.
Functional truck nuts.
Functional truck nuts.
Functional truck nuts.
So in Tamiya, you have like essentially a measuring system of things that are like when you bring in your vehicle to an event to get it measured, the things they measure the width of your vehicle, they measure the length of your vehicle, the height of the vehicle, the ground clearance of your vehicle, which is the space between, and these are all customizable things. It's a range that you can be in that affect all sorts of things, aerodynamics and weight and all. There's so many factors, right? As long as you have over 1 millimeter of clearance from the flat surface, you're good. Tire diameter, tire width, the weight of your vehicle, the drivetrain, which obviously in this case is 4-wheel drive. There are some where it doesn't have to be 4-wheel drive, but generally, obviously, in this case it is. And then gears. You can customize the gears, the lubricant for the gears, and there's a set gear ratio that you have to go for, because you could like fully cowled, you could go crazy and have like a custom gear ratio that makes the wheels super, super fast, but you'd like need a super strong motor to keep up with that or what have you. And there's also different kinds of tracks that you want to account for, because the idea is that you're customizing the vehicle right before the event. You come in, you see the track, you say, all right, I'm going to swap out my motor for this, I'm going to swap out my tires for these. And also the number of rollers. The current limitation, by the way, you can have an unlimited number of rollers, those being the little things on each corner.
The little doodads.
Yeah. The little doodads that keep your thing from going off the track quite so easy or dragging along the sides. You can have an unlimited number of those in standard, which I think is kind of silly, because I've seen some that have like, I think like 4 on each corner, and it's like that's a bit much. But you have to consider, depending on if it's a fully cowled, these things are going real fast, and you need that extra side friction to keep it from flipping out of the track. So it's pretty crazy.
So far, I would do the wild or the truckin' one. I would have one that looked like a Ford Bronco.
Hell yeah.
And it would have weighty truck nuts. The wheels would be lubed up with stuff I put, like some sort of the greasiest grease I put on my face in my skincare cabinet. And I would attempt to spread it on the rest of the track.
Oh, interesting. Now, it's worth noting.
Over lubed.
It's worth mentioning that each car, because the cars aren't controlled, each car is in their own lane of the track. And there is a switchover point, to keep things fair, but
that's going to take a lot of lube to get it on other people's tracks.
You'd have to be squirting lube into other tracks, is what I'm saying.
All right. I got to make mine a squirter. Okay, continue. I'm just formulating the perfect car for me.
And again, it depends on the tracks, because not every track has a switchover. Most of them do. But yeah, really the big thing is modifying for tracks, because even some races will have different textures and things like that. Like you'll have like a section where it's like kind of carpeted, where it's super high friction, because you're dealing with like actual rubber wheels. That's a lot of friction to deal with. So thinner wheels are going to do better on that type of surface because you've got less friction. Although you might want more friction if you have higher weight and higher power. It gets really in depth. Now, some of this may sound familiar to you from a game of some sort. Does it ring any bells?
Yes. Because I basically asked you this beforehand. This reminds me of Mario Kart.
It does remind you of Mario Kart, and that's on purpose. So the Mario Kart system, where you are customizing the weight of your car, the rider, the tires, all of that stuff, is inspired almost directly by Tamiya 4-wheel drive racing. And like if you look in Mario Kart, like more recent versions of it, you'll see like you've got this version of this tire is like a bright red, and this one's a bright blue, and those indicate like different things about how those wheels work. That comes directly from Tamiya.
Do. See, I did not know that, and much like me saying I'll put truck nuts on it and pick the biggest thing possible, I genuinely say I'm playing Waluigi, I'm picking the biggest one possible.
Yeah, and like So there's basically a very I'm not super familiar with like the specific terms. So I should admit at this point, I haven't actually done a race. I've built a car, have not done
But
a
it's
race.
not your fault, though. It's
It's
not
not
your
my
fault, though, because they
fault.
don't have a track to race, which we should get one. We should build the other car you got given and have a little
Hmm.
track and do a little race.
I
But
would
yeah,
love
it's
that.
not exactly. Tamiya racing is not exactly popping off here in
Yeah.
Dallas, Texas.
Dallas, Texas. Yeah, no, it's not popping off here, and it's kind of a problem. And the thing is, right? Part of the way this works in Japan is that you as an individual, if you're living in Japan, you don't own a track. That's not for you. You are the person building the cars and the parts and all of this stuff. And basically, you come to a store where they sell all the parts, and it's like a hobby store generally. If you're familiar, if you're in the US, it's going to be something like Hobbytown USA or something like that, the equivalent of that. But you go to the store and they have the track set up for you, and you can buy pieces of track there, but it's a little bit of a razor and blades scheme, a razor handle and blades scheme, if you're familiar with that concept, where the razor blades themselves are the most expensive part of having, a shaving system.
Mm,
You get a
mm-hmm.
free handle, basically, or, you get a practically free printer, but the ink is exorbitantly expensive, that sort of thing, right? It's a little bit of that thing because the cars, the whole kit, everything you need to put it together, including like axle lubricant and everything, batteries, top to bottom, $10. $10, like generally, and that's like you can get them for
But to
less
get a
too.
track, it's like a track is like $500.
You're not even. That's like $300 to $500 generally is
Oh
where you're
God.
aiming.
Oh, I was trying
Yeah,
to be hyperbolic.
no, it is crazy. And I've been trying to look and see, is there a type of track for a different thing that would fit Tamiya cars?
That would still work. Yeah.
Exactly, because they're wider, they're bigger. If you're thinking of like Hot Wheel size, it's bigger than that, like notably bigger. It's about, like, realistically, it's about the size of a cell phone, like, but thicker, obviously.
I was gonna
But like,
say it. I was gonna say like Pop Tart size, maybe.
yeah, Pop Tart size. That's a great example. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
Pop Tart, but we're talking about like an inch or two thick generally. So they're a bit, they're a good bit bigger than a Hot Wheel. And so Hot Wheel tracks won't work. So that's the struggle, is getting a track. So that is my admission, and as such, because I haven't actually done it or even found a place to do it, I haven't really looked at like the different like categories of racing all that much. I just like building the little car and make it go fast. It's good.
And
But
it's
I
fun
mean,
because the dogs try to chase it.
yeah, the dogs hate it and they want to kill it, and that's fine. They don't have to do it. That's fine.
I think it's some mechanical critter in the house.
I think so. It's loud. That's the thing. The motors in question are very loud. When you were in school, did you ever have like a science class where you built a little gear system or something like that with a little one of those little tiny gray motors that's got like the little plastic end that's kind of oblong, and it has like that little metal post sticking out of the middle and then two terminals?
I did not.
There's like three
I
people listening that are going to know what I'm talking about. So,
I feel I don't recall that I did, but also I might
mhm.
have because in my physics class we had to build popsicle stick roller coasters.
Oh, you may have used
And
something like that.
I actually may have made my partner do that technical part and obsessed over the aesthetics of the roller coaster itself. Now that I'm recalling,
that that sounds about
I
right.
know if my favorite thing is a few years later, my friend Kyle, who was a few years younger than me, had to do the same project. And he made one where he painted the popsicle sticks pink, and he said it was a water slide, and he said it was called Cooter Country. And no, he didn't spell country wrong on accident. And he had Cooter Country be his water slide.
Oh my gosh, that's really good.
But anyway, besides that, I don't th- I probably did have to like interface with one of those, and I probably very promptly said, "No, you do it."
Yeah, and it was most likely like already set up in some kind of case or something, so you may not have. But when I was in elementary school, I was in a special like program for kids what got ADHD generally, or at the time it was like high IQ kids, but it was just generally like people that are very smart but not necessarily doing great in a standard classroom. And so I believe it was called the Reach program. I don't know, but anyway, in that there was one class that was like a physics and engineering class that was kind of cool, because this was like alternative classes to typical schoolwork. So instead of having an English class, you would have like a creative writing class in elementary school, something like that, where it's more about
That's
expressing
cool.
creativity. Yeah, it was pretty neat. Like I had a lot of fun. And if you didn't do the homework, they were like, that's fine. You don't have to. It was cool. It was nice. Very cool. In that class, we had these little Lego kits that were like Lego engineering kits that had one of those little motors in them. And they're the same kind of motors. It was for building like motorized Lego devices and things like that. Like you could build like a little conveyor belt or something like that. That's the same kind of motor we got going here. There's a whole array of different motors. Generally, they all have the same like voltage range from 2.4 to 3 volts. The torque like varies wildly. There's like a whole bunch of different ones. There's like the Hyper Mini, there's the Plasma Dash, the Atomic Tuned. We've got the Sprint Dash, the Hyper Dash Pro, the Hyper Dash J Cup Pro, the Touch
Diva
Dash.
Cup, Baja Blast.
Yeah, exactly. They all have like crazy huge different specifications in terms of torque, RPM, which is rotations per minute, and the current that they generate, which is different from the voltage, because that can also affect a lot of how much power is output over a given amount of time. There's tons and tons of stuff. If you go to TamiyaUSA.com, that's TamiyaUSA.com, they have a whole bunch of stuff about like what is mini 4-wheel drive, tech tips for building, so like how to get different currents and things like that. And it has a link to their product pages that have all the different types of Tamiya cars. You have things like they have tanks and RC cars on their website that aren't 4-wheel drive stuff that are all really cool looking. They're like one of the biggest producers of RC cars and things like that. But they have a whole section just for mini 4-wheel drive. Another thing I want to talk about, aside from these things being really cool to build, there's a video game called Yakuza, or a series rather, called the Yakuza video game series. Also now Like a Dragon, which is like sort of the same series. It's kind of a whole thing. But either way, those games are set in Japan in the 80s. Guess what year Tamiya came out? Or 4-wheel drive, mini 4-wheel drive, I should say.
1987.
Close. 1982. Tamiya came out with the mini 4-wheel drives in 1982. They're really dang cool. Basically, there have been, ever since that, like it was really, really popular right off the bat. And there are, like, since then, 7 different series of mini 4-wheel drives have launched into the US market. We've got the Super Mini 4-wheel drive, the fully cowled. There's the Racing Mini, which is like a whole other thing. There's the Aero Mini, the Pro Mini, and then the Rev Mini. And the Mechanical Mini, which those are all like, they all sound kind of like the same thing, but they all have their own specifications and reason for being named that. But it's a glue-free snap-together kit. It's really, really cool. So the Yakuza series, they have a reference to this in the games that you may have heard of if you played the game. A lot of people played it and didn't realize it was a real thing that was super popular in the 80s. In the game, it's called Pocket Circuit, or in Japanese, Paketo Circuito. In the game,
cute.
in Japanese, it's Paketo Circuito. And it really rolls off the tongue, but it's just Pocket Circuit in English, which I think is really good. But in the game, you literally, like, it's just like going into, from what I presume, like from what I've seen pictures of, a Japanese like hobby shop. There's a whole wall full of little baggies, like, when you go to the grocery store and there's like the Mexican spices aisle, right? And they have the little baggies.
Yeah,
Imagine those, but instead it has all the different engines and sets of wheels and lubricant and screwdrivers and the bearings and rollers and motors and gears and everything, all on this one big wall. And you just grab the parts that you need and you buy them at the counter, and they're like $1 or $2 each. And then you find a table, build your car, and then you go submit it for the race. It's so cool. And like in Pocket Circuit,
is this like a mini game you
Yes.
do inside of the game?
Yes, this is a mini game. So Yakuza is partly known for a lot of their really big mini games. They have a karaoke mini game that's very fun because you have this like big tough Yakuza guy doing karaoke at a bar, which I think is really fun. And you can do like a lot of the songs that are like traditionally female lead singers and stuff like that, which is just very fun. I like that the Yakuza series plays with gender. I might do a whole episode on the Yakuza series at some point. But one of the mini games.
Do you also get to sing? Do you also get to sing one of my karaoke standbys and pick something from Pat Benatar?
God, I wish that would be great. I need to tell you a story at some point about I saw Pat Benatar live at like a Mayfest concert one time, and the guitarist flicked their guitar pick off stage and it landed in my shirt pocket. I still have it somewhere.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't even trying to catch it. They just flicked it and I was like, "What was that?" And I looked in my shirt pocket and I was like, "Oh,
my titty. Thank you, titty.
Yeah, thank you, titty. You caught this guitar pick from the guitarist for Pat Benatar. That's cool." Anyway, totally off topic. But so the Yakuza series, they've got Pocket Circuit, and in the game, you customize your car just like in Tamiya 4-wheel drive. And when I learned, like, I had so much fun. That was the main minigame I played when I was playing my first Yakuza game. I played the shit out of that. And when I learned it was a real thing, I was like, oh, fuck, I gotta get this kit. And I got it, and I built the whole car and put all the stickers on in one evening. And I've had it, and I have no track upon which to do it. But it's really cool, and I'm very excited about it, and it's so much fun.
It was very cute seeing you put it together. You're very excited.
Yeah. If you look on Tamiya's YouTube channel, you can actually see videos of them racing. Also, videos like from the car's perspective, which I think is really cool. They have like stick a GoPro on the car and put it on the track in slow motion and stuff. It's really, really cool. And there's like some tracks that have like jumps and stuff, which those are brutal because I don't even know how you stay.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's wild.
Gonna smack the truck nuts right off of mine.
Right? But like because they're so highly tuned in order to stay very specifically in your track, they can do jumps and like they're designed to do that, and it's wild. And like there's some that have like loop-de-loops and all kinds of stuff. There's so many, and like there's like really, really high-end ones that are like all metal chassis and all kinds of crazy stuff. But the high end of it gets really, really cool. And hey, if you're in Texas and you know of a place that does Tamiya racing, the fucking slide into my DMs promptly, please. One other thing I want to talk about is the disqualifications, because one of them specifically lists putting grease on the track.
Oh no,
yeah.
My grease
I do want to talk about these disqualifications. According to the rules, if any of the following situations occur, race officials will, at their discretion, have absolute authority to disqualify any racer. Please take care to remember the common manners for a mini 4-wheel drive race to avoid any problems. 1. A racer's car is determined to have modifications that will cause physical harm to other racers, other cars, or the racetrack.
On.
I don't know why my Knife Car 5000 can't race. You haven't. So what if it stabs somebody? They should get thicker skin. So
please ignore my dog that sits next to me and goes
right, and
because I would be on some wacky racers. kind of shit.
Oh, absolutely. So disqualification number 2: a racer's car is determined to have modifications that are deliberately designed to obstruct other cars. And that kind of goes with the next one. A racer deliberately puts grease or other substances onto the track to affect the track surface condition. They made that one for you.
I'm a criminal.
You're a criminal, and that's okay. There's more disqualifications, though. If a racer is determined to have modified their car after it passed inspection, obviously. If a racer is determined to have deliberately touched the track or cars to impede other racers' progress. So, like, what do you mean I'm disqualified? I punched their car, sure, but it looked at me weird. You know?
Yeah.
These are wild. If a racer does not follow the instructions of race officials or otherwise impedes the operations of the racetrack, if a racer has a false start or is determined to have thrown or pushed their car forward at the start of the race, because you literally, the rules say that you have to, with one hand, drop the car onto the track, and you can't throw it forward. There can be no like arm or like yeeting motion of any kind, otherwise like straight up disqualified. You can also get disqualified for acting against the spirit of fair play or causing distress to other participants, which is pretty broad. Honestly, it's pretty broad. So, but yeah, there's all the rules and stuff are online, and it's really cool. I just wanted to touch on the disqualifications.
Just imagine me being super evil, going, "So your parents are divorced? Was it your fault?" to another person.
And like, I'm gonna be real with you. In Japan, I'm pretty sure that most of the people that do this are kids. Like, I'm pretty sure this is aimed at kids. So,
So
and
just
like,
me leaning over to an 8-year-old going, "Your parents are divorced. Did you ever think about maybe it's your fault?" Just
and they
there
go,
we go. Guess you're out of the race.
and like, it's funny because in the Yakuza games, your character is a fully grown adult, and like, there's only like one other person I think that is participating, and they have like a mascot person. He's like dressed in like a racer, like a speed racer kind of outfit, and so it is kind of funny because like I think at one point in the Yakuza game, like there's like this little girl who's like, if you race me, I'll go on a date with you, and your character's like, I'm a grown man. What are you talking about? It's just super ridiculous. After you defeat her in a race, another child comes along and says, "You can't have her. That's my girlfriend."
Oh my god.
And it's like, it's this whole plot about how your character's like literally just here for the love of the game. And
I'm
these
just
kids.
I'm just here because I love little cars. Please keep
Yeah,
your drama out of this.
it's very cool and it's a lot of fun. And I wish I could do it. And I'm putting in
Maybe
a lot of
someone will
ums.
slide into your DMs and tell
Yeah,
you
yeah,
about
yeah.
a track.
Yeah, somebody please slide into my DMs. Make sure you have proper bearings and rollers so that you don't fall off the track. But slide into the DMs, and make sure that you haven't greased the track before you slide into my DM. And make it,
Yes.
you got to drop it with one hand into my DMs, one hand. But yeah,
Yes.
slide into my DMs. Let me know if there's a place that I can go and release my dark passenger, which is the name of my car.
Your knee.
Um. It wasn't that, but it is now.
It is now. That's great.
It is now. Yeah, the dark passenger. But yeah.
We should use the Cricut cutter and make you a little sticker
Oh my
that
god, that'd
says
be so good.
"Dark Passenger" for your car.
That would be really good. And you can modify the cars too, as long as the original part shape is clearly identifiable, which again is vague. My first thought was, oh, so I can modify it like crazy and put a little sticker on it of the original part. So this is what it's supposed to look like.
I mean, they never said a dog can't race cars,
Right. One last thing I wanted to mention is a lot of the people that grew up in the U.S., specifically people that were raised as a masculine person, you probably did Boy Scouts or whatever if you grew up like in the 90s. I was put into Boy Scouts, which is very ironic thinking about it nowadays. But
you were undercover and secret.
yeah, I was totally undercover. I knew, they didn't know. And so I infiltrated the Scouts when I was younger, essentially. One part of that was they have a thing called Pine Car Derby, if you're familiar. Have you heard of this at all?
I am not. I was in Girl Scouts for 2 weeks and I was like, it'd be fine if it wasn't for all the other people here. I can do all these things on my own. I don't want to be here. And my mom's like, yeah. So
Got it.
I don't know if Girl Scouts ever did that, but I wasn't in there long enough. We had one horseback riding retreat and I was a kid who did equestrian sports. And they're like, no. You can't saddle this horse yourself. And I was like, ma'am, I assure you I can. I know what I'm doing. And I wouldn't have it. So anyway, I didn't get to car racing. Tell me about these pine car races.
So Pine Car Derby is basically you get a little kit and it's generally the same price or more as a Tamiya 4-wheel drive racing kit. But they're like worse basically because it's a block of pine wood, just a rectangular block of pine wood, some wheels, and like that's it. And the idea is you take this block of pine wood, you chop it up into a race car shape, you drill a hole through the bottom of it for the axle and stick the wheels on, and they're shitty little plastic wheels. And then you put weights on it within a certain amount. And then there's a big slope track that's high on one end, low on the other. And you're trying to build the fastest pine car. They're completely unpowered, just except by gravity, right? And you put them at the top of the slope. They all get released at the same time by a stick, and then they all go to the bottom. I feel like Tamiya 4-wheel drive is just a cooler and better version of Pine Car Derby. And
then again,
yeah.
My strategy for the Pine Car Derby is to do layers and layers of like some wood finishing oil to grease up my car and have it slip on down the track faster.
Yeah.
My answer is grease all of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're a grease lady, so it makes sense.
I'm a grease freak.
And I'm gonna tell you that you're gonna love this. So the secret to winning Pine Car Derby is grease, specifically greasing your axles. Most people will put in like a tiny bit. Most people will put in a tiny bit of grease on their axles that comes with the kit. Whatever. It's a metal rod spinning in a wooden hole, there's friction there. The more you can reduce that friction, the faster your car is going to go, because aside from the amount of weight you can put on, which there's a limit to how much it can weigh, and you want it to be as much as possible so it can get as much gravity as possible, the position of the weights and the type of grease that you use are like the two variables that you can affect. And most people will go and get the best grease that you can buy and just win, because like most people aren't using that grease. So Pine Car Derby sucks, but I have good memories of doing it, and this fulfills those memories in a better way.
Me at Pine Car Derby, I show up, I pull my car out of a jar, like a little canister of vegetable shortening. I win.
God, that would be amazing. Interestingly enough, the lubricants that are used in that are like graphite powder lubricants, essentially, where it's originally like a grease, but
Dry.
it kind of dries into like microparticles of graphite that are very slippy.
Like you do for a lock.
Yeah, like for a lock. So that's pretty much it. To me, 4-wheel drive racing is really cool. You should get a kit and build it, even if you don't actually race it, because they're fun to just yeet across the room anyway, because they're so fast.
Dogs love chasing them.
Dogs love chasing them, and they're meant to like take a beating. They're meant to flip over and stuff. Because one thing I forgot to mention. So your car, it has like a little. All the Tamiya cars on the back, it has like this little like lock key thing. It's not like a key, but it's like a little cap that locks the top chassis onto the body of your car. And if your car gets jostled too much, it will fall off if it doesn't have that little lock on there. And so before you start the race, you take that little lock off, and if your top chassis pops off, your car blew up, basically. But you can just pop it back on. So these things are meant to take a beating. They're meant to like bop around and hit the stuff. So yeah, you can have your dog chase them. Just don't let them chew on it, because batteries, acid,
Yeah, no.
all
and
that
all
stuff.
the grease.
And all the grease, yeah. But it's real cool, and I like it, and it's a lot of fun. That's my dump.
Thank you for your dump, baby. Now I
Yeah,
kind of want to go play some Mario Kart later and still not make wise choices for my car.
that's fine. Hey, I'm down. We should play some Mario Kart. I love it.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Go get a Tamiya racing car. Please tell my sweet and beautiful girlfriend where she can go find a track somewhere in DFW.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm back with the housekeeping. As per usual, if you want to see what Violet and I are up to on the internet, and you want to follow all of the Mixnomer content, our Instagram, which was formerly Lucky Winter Show, is now Mixnomer Productions. So it will be, if you are also today's Lucky Winter listener, it's still happening. Season 3 is coming, but we are making our social media all Mixnomer so we can have a one-stop shop for any of the podcasts and stuff we do. So go check the show details to find out where we hang out on the interwebs. If you would like to support the show, the best way you can do that is telling your friends about it. Heck, tell your enemies, tell your acquaintances, tell anyone who you think might like the show. That helps us grow. We don't pay for advertisements, so the way that we get new listeners is entirely by y'all telling people about our shows. So that helps us a bunch. If you haven't subscribed already, that also helps us get higher up in the rankings and recommended more. And it does, you pay nothing. It's free. You click the subscribe button, and then you're like, oh, there's a new episode of Infodumpies, cool. And it helps us. So like, it's a win-win. If you haven't left a rating or review of the show, that also helps us out. And if you leave a review, you can let people know what you like about the show. If you don't like the show, maybe be chill. Can you be cool? Can you be chill and be cool and just shush about it? Because it hurts my feelings. But if you do like the show, leave a rating or review. If you are in a position where you can support us monetarily and you'd like to do that, you can also check out the show details to find our Patreon page. We do lots of fun stuff. We do streams. I'm gonna be working on doing like a stitch and bitch, like a knitting, crocheting, fiber arts time, where we hang out and do that and just shoot the shit. We've done body doubling. We play Jackbox games a lot because we like it and it's very fun. You can watch, we'll do like video game streams. There's a video game that Violet and I have been playing that is language based. Like, God, I forget the name of it. But I think I'm going to do a stream of that one too. It's like linguistics, the game, so I've really been about it. But anyway, as $1 a month, you can join our Discord server and get to hang out and do all that cool stuff. And at certain levels on our Patreon tiers, you get a cool shout out. Like our friends Randy Lovings, Rachel Rachelson, Sewing Seraph, B. Trossler, Smriti Singh, Helen Clifford, M. Mosen, Lucy, and Nicole Valdivieso. But that's all I've got for you, friends. Stay cool, I don't have a sign off for this one. I have a sign off for today's lucky winner, and I haven't found a good one for this one. So, keep it tight. I don't know, I'm sorry.